What happens when the former president of the United States, known for his outbursts, his defiance, and his refusal to back down, faces the calm but unshakable authority of the man who once held the office before him? On live television, in front of millions of viewers, Donald Trump erupted in a fury unlike anything we'd seen before. His voice rose, his face flushed red, and his hands slammed the podium as he shouted accusations, pointing fingers and claiming that the world was against him. But then, Barack Obama stepped forward, not with anger, not with insults, but with something far more powerful: the truth. In one moment, the atmosphere shifted. The room grew silent as Obama calmly looked into the camera and said the words that would send shockwaves across the nation. The truth has a way of catching up with you. From there, everything spiraled. Trump's defenses crumbled under the weight of facts and documents that Obama laid bare. The audience gasped. Social media lit up instantly, and a political spectacle turned into something much bigger than anyone expected. Because this wasn't just another debate. This was about accountability. This was about one man's desperate attempt to hide and another man's decision to reveal. Tonight, we break down the shocking live confrontation that left Donald Trump cornered, Barack Obama elevated, and millions of Americans asking the same question: what happens when denial finally collides with the truth?
The stage was set for what many believed would be just another political broadcast. Bright studio lights washed over a packed audience, their anticipation buzzing through the room. The air was thick, not with excitement, but with tension, an almost electric unease that suggested something bigger was about to unfold. At center stage stood Donald Trump, confident in appearance, but visibly restless. His trademark gestures, hands slicing through the air, lips curling into sharp jabs, hinted at the storm brewing inside. He had been here before, the cameras, the questions, the critics. But on this night, there was something different. Seated across the stage was Barack Obama, calm, measured, and observant. He carried himself with the same quiet confidence that had once made him one of the most respected leaders on the global stage. He didn't need to raise his voice or even move much. His presence alone commanded the room. The moderators shuffled their notes, prepared to navigate what was already a politically charged event. Viewers at home tuned in expecting sharp words, maybe even fireworks, but few could have predicted the dramatic collision that was about to take place. Underlying everything was a deeper agenda. Trump was there to defend himself, to deflect mounting scrutiny and accusations that had been gaining traction in the press. He wanted to shift blame, rewrite the narrative, and reclaim control. Obama, on the other hand, had no intention of letting half-truths and diversions go unchecked. His role tonight wasn't political theater. It was about setting the record straight. The atmosphere in the room reflected this clash of intentions. Supporters of both men sat scattered throughout the audience, some leaning forward in defense, others holding their breath in anticipation. Every cough, every shuffle of paper, every flicker of expression seemed amplified under the glare of the cameras. It wasn't just two men sharing a stage. It was two visions of leadership, two approaches to truth colliding in front of millions. And the moment the first questions were asked, the sparks began to fly.
The opening minutes followed a predictable rhythm. The moderator asked pointed but fair questions, and Trump did what he always does best: go on the attack. His words weren't so much answers as they were accusations, sharp and relentless. "This is a witch hunt," he barked, jabbing his finger toward the crowd as though the entire room was conspiring against him. "Everything you've heard, all these so-called reports, it's fake, it's lies. I've been treated worse than any president in history, worse than Lincoln, worse than anyone." The audience shifted uneasily. Some clapped, others groaned, while many simply watched in silence. The tension was growing. Trump leaned harder into his narrative, painting himself as the victim of an endless smear campaign. "They've been after me since day one. First it was the election, then Russia, then impeachment, and now this. And let me tell you, folks, this is all Obama's fault. All of it. That was the moment the energy shifted. For the first time that night, Trump turned his fire directly toward Obama. He accused him of orchestrating investigations, of plotting in the shadows to destroy his presidency, even of weaponizing institutions against him. "You don't know the half of it," Trump growled, his voice rising. "He's the real criminal here, not me. I built jobs, I built the economy, and they couldn't stand it." The moderators tried to regain control, asking for specifics, pressing him to clarify, but Trump bulldozed through every question, repeating the same refrains, louder each time. He gestured wildly, his frustration spilling over into anger. The escalation was undeniable. The audience wasn't just listening anymore. They were bracing themselves. Everyone could sense it. This was no longer about policy or politics. This was personal. And as the accusations grew bolder, the room turned toward the man Trump had placed at the center of his fury, Barack Obama, calm, silent, watching. The camera cut to him briefly, his expression steady, unshaken. He didn't flinch, he didn't look away. The stage had been set. Trump's storm of accusations hung heavy in the air, daring a response. And when Obama finally spoke, the entire world seemed to stop.
The room had reached a boiling point. Trump's voice echoed off the walls, each accusation louder than the last, until it felt less like an interview and more like a rally of one. His hands sliced the air, his words tumbling over each other in a storm of anger and defiance. And then, silence. Barack Obama leaned forward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam his hand on the table. He simply cleared his throat and spoke. "Donald," he said, calm and deliberate, "you can deny the facts all you want, but the truth has a way of catching up with you." The shift was immediate. The audience, restless seconds ago, fell into stillness. The moderators froze, their pens suspended mid-note. Trump blinked, momentarily caught off guard. For the first time all evening, the storm seemed to pause. Obama continued, his voice steady but firm. "Look," he said, turning toward the camera, "when you take on the responsibility of leading a country, you don't get to rewrite reality. You don't get to hide behind excuses. You face the facts even when they're uncomfortable. That's what leadership requires." The audience erupted into applause this time, no longer able to contain it. Trump threw his arms up, shaking his head, his frustration boiling into visible fury. But it didn't matter. The shift had already happened. In that moment, the credibility scale tipped. The audience wasn't seeing a debate anymore. They were witnessing two men embodying two completely different approaches, one shouting at the storm, the other steady in its eye. And the world noticed. Headlines flashed across the screen. Obama fact-checks Trump live. Clash on air stuns viewers. Truth versus denial in historic broadcast. The intervention wasn't loud, but it was seismic. Obama had stepped in at the perfect moment, when the chaos was at its peak, and shifted the energy with nothing more than calm authority and undeniable facts. For Trump, it was the beginning of the unraveling. For Obama, it was a reminder of why his voice still carried so much power. And for the audience, both in the studio and at home, it was clear. The night had just changed forever.
After the audience's applause settled, Obama leaned back in his chair, composed as ever. He didn't need the shout over Trump's protests. He let the facts do the work. "These aren't partisan talking points," he began, his voice steady, eyes fixed on the moderator's camera. "These are documented truths." He held up a folder that had been resting quietly on the table, flipping through several pages before pausing. "Court filings, sworn statements, financial records. This isn't hearsay, it's evidence." The camera zoomed in on the documents as Obama read aloud a few key lines: dates, signatures, official seals. These reports show a pattern: conflicts of interest, misuse of funds, abuse of office. And every time you've been confronted with these facts, Donald, your answer's been the same: denial. The audience reacted audibly, gasps, murmurs, even a few audible wows. Trump shook his head furiously, waving his hands as if to swat the evidence out of the air. "Fake! All fake!" he shouted. But Obama pressed forward, his tone unwavering. It's easy to dismiss one report or one witness, but you can't dismiss them all. You can't ignore the paper trail, the testimonies, the bipartisan confirmations, and you certainly can't shout down the truth. He leaned slightly toward Trump, his words deliberate. "You say it's a witch hunt, but witch hunts don't come with receipts." That line landed like a thunderclap. The crowd erupted into applause, some even rising from their seats. Social media feeds lit up again, the quote plastered across posts and memes within seconds. Witch hunts don't come with receipts. Obama's strategy was clear: strip away the noise and remind the world of the facts. By citing specifics, by showing actual documents, he exposed the weakness of Trump's defense. The louder Trump shouted, the smaller he seemed against the quiet weight of evidence. In that moment, the tables had turned completely. The spectacle was no longer about Trump's bluster. It was about Obama's credibility, about the undeniable presence of proof. And for viewers at home, the revelation was impossible to ignore. The moment Obama set down the documents, the studio erupted. Applause thundered through the audience, whistles and cheers breaking the tense silence that had dominated just moments before. But one person wasn't clapping: Donald Trump. His face was flushed crimson, his jaw clenched tight. He leaned into the microphone, jabbing his finger toward Obama and the crowd. "This is disgraceful. You're lying. You've always been a liar. You're the most corrupt president this country has ever had, and now you come up here pretending to be some kind of saint?" The moderators tried to step in, reminding Trump to keep his answers brief, but their voices were drowned out by his booming tone. He launched into a familiar tirade: fake news, phony investigations, all set up to take me down because I'm the only one fighting for the American people. The more he shouted, the more he lost control of the room. Viewers could see it on the faces of the audience, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others smirking knowingly as his voice cracked with desperation. But Obama didn't flinch. He waited patiently, hands folded, eyes steady, as Trump's anger spiraled into chaos. And when the former president finally paused to catch his breath, Obama leaned forward once more. "Donald," he said, softly but firmly, "leadership isn't about blaming others. It isn't about shouting the loudest. It's about facing the truth, even when it's hard, even when it hurts." The room went still again. Obama's calm delivery cut through Trump's noise like a scalpel. His tone carried no malice, only clarity. "You've spent years calling everything fake, but facts don't disappear because you say so. Evidence doesn't vanish because you raise your voice. The American people deserve better than excuses." The audience broke into applause again, louder this time, and the camera caught Trump visibly recoiling, his jaw tightening as if he had been struck. He muttered into the microphone, "Total nonsense, pathetic," but the conviction was gone. Obama sealed the exchange with one final line, looking directly into the camera. "You can deny reality for as long as you want, but in the end, the truth doesn't go away, and neither does accountability." The crowd rose to their feet, a standing ovation thundering through the studio. Even the moderators looked stunned at the weight of the moment. Trump sat back, shaking his head, visibly rattled. His usual fire seemed dimmed, smothered under the calm precision of Obama's rebuttal. For the first time in the evening, he looked less like a fighter and more like a man cornered. It wasn't just words anymore. It was the clash of credibility versus chaos, composure versus rage. And in that moment, there was no question who had won the room.
The standing ovation still echoed in the studio when the broadcast wrapped, but the real impact of the moment was just beginning. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation were spreading like wildfire across social media. Twitter feeds exploded with hashtags like Trump Meltdown, Obama exposes truth, and witch hunt with receipts. On TikTok, short edits of Obama's line, "Witch hunts don't come with receipts," were replayed millions of times within hours, remixed with music, memes, and reaction videos. Instagram Reels showed side-by-side comparisons. Trump's furious rant against Obama's quiet composure. The contrast was undeniable, and it resonated with audiences across the spectrum. News outlets scrambled to cover the exchange. CNN replayed the clip on loop, calling it a devastating blow in real time. Even networks usually sympathetic to Trump couldn't ignore the optics. Headlines splashed across front pages. Obama dismantles Trump live on air. Former president shuts down Trump with facts. Viral showdown sparks political firestorm. But the reactions weren't all positive. Trump's most loyal supporters doubled down, echoing his claims that the entire exchange was staged or scripted. Conservative commentators insisted Obama had been handed an unfair platform to attack, while Trump's campaign team blasted out fundraising emails within hours, calling the moment the greatest ambush in television history. Still, the momentum was clear. For every defender, there were dozens more voices praising Obama's intervention. Teachers, activists, even ordinary citizens posted personal stories about why his words had resonated. One viral tweet read, "I watched with my teenage son. He looked at me and said, 'That's what leadership looks like.'" Another wrote, "We needed this moment. We needed someone to show that facts still matter." The impact reached beyond politics. Late-night hosts seized on the exchange, playing clips of Trump's meltdown and contrasting them with Obama's calm. Memes flooded timelines. Trump's face contorted in rage, captioned, "When the truth shows up," beside Obama's composed expression under the words, "Truth has receipts." Behind the scenes, sources reported that Trump was furious after leaving the stage, lashing out at his advisors and demanding to know why Obama had been given so much airtime. His anger, however, only fueled more headlines, further feeding the narrative of a man unraveling. Obama, in contrast, avoided the media frenzy. When asked for comment after the broadcast, he simply said, "It wasn't about me. It was about the truth." That humility only deepened the respect for his performance, painting him as the adult in the room at a time when tempers were flaring. By the end of the week, the exchange wasn't just a clip, it was a cultural touchstone. Political analysts debated its long-term effects. Historians noted the rarity of such direct presidential confrontations, and millions of ordinary Americans pointed to it as proof that calm leadership could still cut through the noise. The confrontation had gone viral, but its impact was far greater than views and shares. It had reshaped the narrative, leaving one man cornered and the other elevated.
As the headlines faded from breaking news into history, one truth about that night became clear. This wasn't just a clash between two former presidents. It was a moment that revealed something deeper about leadership, accountability, and the power of truth. For many Americans, Obama's calm dismantling of Trump's fury was more than entertainment. It was a reminder that leadership isn't measured by volume or anger, but by composure, evidence, and the courage to face reality. His words struck a chord because they highlighted something people had begun to doubt, that facts still matter and that integrity can still command respect. Letters and messages poured in from across the country. Teachers wrote about showing the clip to their students as an example of how to handle confrontation with grace. Parents said their children had asked, "Why doesn't everyone talk like that in politics?" And everyday viewers admitted that, for the first time in a long time, they felt hopeful that honesty could still break through the noise. The broader lesson was simple but powerful. Bluster can dominate the airwaves, but it cannot erase the truth. Denial may delay accountability, but it cannot prevent it forever. And when someone with credibility stands up and speaks plainly, the ripple effect can be massive. Perhaps the most lasting significance of that night is what it revealed about advocacy. Everyone needs someone willing to vouch for the truth when it's under attack. Obama wasn't defending himself. He was defending the idea that facts matter more than slogans, that receipts outweigh rants. In doing so, he showed the power of stepping in, of using your voice not for yourself, but for the greater good. And that's the lesson beyond the viral moment. Preparation meets opportunity. Composure outlasts chaos, and truth, when spoken with clarity, always finds its mark.
The showdown between Donald Trump and Barack Obama may have started as a viral moment on live television, but its meaning stretches far beyond the headlines and hashtags. What we witnessed wasn't just political theater. It was a lesson about truth, a lesson about leadership, and most of all, a lesson about courage. Trump's meltdown, his refusal to engage with facts, and his attempt to bulldoze the narrative showed us what happens when denial becomes a strategy. But Obama's calm intervention revealed something far greater: that preparation, composure, and the quiet strength of evidence will always outlast bluster and noise. So here's the challenge for all of us watching. When the truth is under attack in your own life, whether it's at work, at school, in your community, or even within your family, will you stay silent or will you step up? It doesn't always take a microphone, a stage, or millions of viewers. Sometimes it takes one person in the room willing to say, "That's not true. Here are the facts." Sometimes it takes one person to vouch for someone being unfairly attacked. And sometimes it takes one person to remind the rest of us that integrity matters more than volume. Because here's the reality: lies are loud. Denial is persistent. But the truth doesn't need to shout. It only needs to be spoken. So I want you to take this story as more than entertainment. Take it as a call to action. Be the voice of honesty when it's easier to stay quiet. Be the advocate for someone who can't defend themselves. And most importantly, be the person who remembers that leadership isn't about deflecting blame. It's about accepting responsibility. And if you found value in this breakdown, if this story reminded you why facts matter, why composure matters, why courage matters, then I invite you to stay with us. Subscribe to this channel, because here we don't just chase headlines. We uncover the lessons behind them. We highlight the moments that prove character still counts. And we share the stories that show how truth, no matter how buried, always finds a way forward. So don't just watch history. Learn from it. Carry its lessons into your own life. And when your moment comes, remember, bluster fades, denial crumbles, but truth endures. Thank you for watching. Stay strong, stay honest, and we'll see you in the next one.